Technology is working, so now I've got no excuse not to learn. Right, what are you doing now? Okay. Rabbi Yehuda told us two chidushim. Chiddush number one, there's no two stands in the Beis HaMikdash, only one stand. Chiddush number two is in the Beis HaMikdash, there were 13 stocker boxes. It says Rabbi Yehuda that none of them were for the purpose of korbanos chayva, birds of chayva. Now, in the beginning, we thought that both reasons can be explained with one reason. Both halachas be explained with one reason, which is don't rely on labels. You can't rely on the written label because people don't look at the labels. We rejected that explanation because we see that Rabbi Yehuda does rely on labels. Because in fact, when it comes to that Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda tells us many halachas which are to do with labels. For example, there was a label for the chatos, for the keteros. There was labels, not chatos, sorry, keteros for the shligzir. So we do rely on labels. Now that we say that we do rely on labels, we have both questions difficult. And now the Gemara first tackles the one which is not to do with our sugya, the one, why can't you have a special box for korbanos which is chayv? The Gemara replied that somebody might die. The Gemara says you don't be chayv that people might die. It's interesting, we're not chayv that people might die. If somebody sends, once about in Gittin, if somebody sends a get, nowadays you can find that person still alive, but the one Gittin talks about, somebody sends a get, and it takes 6 months, a year for the get to arrive, we still carry on with the continuation of the rules of the get. No. Because she won't be able to marry a kohen, a chalitza, and all kinds of other things. We continue with our halachas of the get. Without being chish, people might die. Answers the Gemara, not a case where a person might die. A person definitely died. So what happened was hundreds of ladies, let's say, who had given birth, came to the Beis HaMikdash to bring pale birds for the kinei chayva. And one of the ladies who put the money in, we find out that actually she dies, and now we're stuck. Before we go back to the problem of what to do with our Mishnah about the two stands, we go into the topic of why continuation with this problem. The Gemara asks, we're up to 5 lines from the bottom on the Hamel base. V'nivoy, let us just choose Alba Zuzi. Take any 4 zuz out of the stocker box. V'nishti b'may, and throw it into the water. And then we should say, B'hanoch nishtau. And the rest is mutter, as Moshe correctly pointed out. Rely on Brera is retroactive designation. But what happens is, let's say 100 ladies put the money in. Each one put a different sum of money, a different coin. We should take one of the coins, get rid of it, and say, that's the one which chatos shemesu ba'aleh, and therefore we're okay. 2 minor points. One is throwing it into the water. Is that sufficient? Anybody remember? Oh, so what's this? What do you need to do? You need to grind it up and put it into the water. So why is but there's actually one place where if you throw it to the water, it is good enough. The Dead Sea. In fact, we had it to psochim. You can do one or the other. You can't throw it to the water without grinding it, or throw it to the Dead Sea. The Gemara over here says throw it to the water. The Ritva says it means one of those 2 solutions: either grind it, put it to the water, or put it in special water where nobody can get it. Okay. Another minor point is why 4 zuz. Why 4 zuz? Rashi brings a Gemara, increases that is how much 2 birds cost. Tosfos disagrees, and Tosfos says that's not true, because in fact it is much less. And Tosfos says the Gemara uses often 4 zuz as like a $1 million question. It really means literally $1 million. It's like just a phrase. 4 zuz, just take any coin and throw it in. Answers the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda less le'brera. Rabbi Yehuda does not hold the brera. I mean, since Rabbi Yehuda does not hold the brera, so throwing that money will not help. And therefore, back to square one. If a lady or a man definitely dies, we're going to be stuck. The Gemara minora. How do we know that Rabbi Yehuda does not hold the brera? And here the Gemara now gives different mishnayos, different halachas, which discussing where we can prove whether Rabbi Yehuda holds brera or not. Person bought wine from a kuti, and he cannot rely that the kuti took tumas hamaisus, and he needs to take tumas hamaisus. A few minor points. One is, the problem is that wine from a goy is forbidden. So Rashi says we're talking about before the kutim were established as goyim, and therefore there is no problem of yain nesach. Otherwise you would have a problem of yain nesach. Another problem is, why can't it? It's very interesting because this week's parasha tells us in detail the halachas of tumas hamaisus. The end of Korach tells the halachas of tumas hamaisus. So here, we're a discussion where somebody's got a barrel of wine and he can't take tumas hamaisus. Why can't he take tumas hamaisus? Why can't he do it properly? There are two explanations, and the two explanations depend on the gilsa of the Gemara. Our gil says Erev Shabbos B'chashecha, means let's say this is a bottle of wine, I buy it from a kuti, come home, and it's going to be Shabbos in literally 2 minutes. If I have to start taking Truma, Maisa, Trumas Maisa, Maisa Visha, Maisa Sheni, I'm not going to have time. So that is the simple explanation. If you read the words of the Gemara, Erev Shabbos B'chashecha, it's just before Shabbos, you haven't got time to start separating. How much you have to take for Truma? A 40th, 50th, or 60th midrabanan, and as you said in our Torah, you can take anything, even one drop is enough. Maisa, how much is Maisa? 10%. Trumas Maisa is 10% of 10%. And then you have to take another 10% for Maisa Sheni. That takes time. And it's Erev Shabbos, you haven't got any time. So that's why what we're going to do is rely on just saying a few words and then Motzei Shabbos doing the separation. That is, no, so you won't be able to. You won't be able to. You'll be forbidden to. Rashi has a different gilsa. Rashi holds that we're talking about the person who's got one bottle of wine and no other jugs in the house. So how is he going to take two samaises? What should he do? He physically can't do it. That's the word for it. He physically, not time-wise, he can't do it. Physically, he can't do it. So either way, he's stuck. He can't take two samaises. So what should he do? He stands up for him and he says, "Shnei lugin, two lug, shani osid lafish," which eventually I'll separate I in truma. Why is he giving away two lug? Which measure is he doing? Two lug from 100, right, is a 50th. He's taking for the 50th, which is the middle measure, 40th, 50th, 60th. Top of Nun Vavam Adalef Very very long Amud. Asara Ma'aser Rishon. 10 is Ma'aser Rishon. Tisha Ma'aser Sheni. 9 is Ma'aser Sheni. Umeichel. He has to redeem the Ma'aser Sheni because since that doesn't take very long, we should do it straight away. V'shoyse miyad divrei Ameh. Drinks it immediately divrei Ameh. Just at the whole lot. I just want to point out what. Yeah, should have been more time. So let's do all the tastes. One minor question. There's a lot of minor questions here. The basic questions regarding prayer, but interesting questions like this. If you take 2 for truma, how much? If you take 2 out of 100, how much have you got left? 98. How much do you have to take now for Ma'aser Rishon? So what's the Gemara say? Ma'aser Asara Ma'aser Rishon, 10 for Ma'aser Rishon. That's a very lot. You only need to take 9.8. That seems unfair to require him to take so much. Yeah, I was being sarcastic. But the Rishonim are very busy with this question. And there is a shit in the Rishonim. You want to say it to the Shabbos table, make everybody very excited, because this is Parshat Truma Ma'aser. That min ha-Torah, how much do you have to give Truma? Anything, one drop. And the Torah says give 10% to the Levi. You go and give the Kohen extra, and thereby lose the Levi. That doesn't seem fair. So you still have to give 10 for the Levi. A very mechudesh, like a shit in the Rishonim. No, the Torah says Truma is Rishon because first. Ma'aser Tosfos says that that's nonsense. Tosfos doesn't agree with it at all. Tosfos does not agree with it at all because Tosfos says that whatever you gave to the Kohen, you're potter, you don't have to. And as others point out, 9.8 and 10 is so close as to be vague thing, so you just say 10 will mean 9.8. There's a big question over here. Why can't we rely on the kuti doing it? It says that we hold that kuti is worse than an am'or. The am'or, it's the suffix. Well, it takes two samaisos, but the kuti doesn't take any two samaisos, and therefore we hold that there's no two samaisos at all. So the ma'aser Rameir holds the brera. It's clear that Rameir does hold the brera. How do Rameir hold the brera? Because if you're going to drink the wine on Shabbos, or you drink the wine before you separate it, and then later we learn it. Top of November days. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon Oisim. They all forbid it. Alma ain't breva. So Rabbi Yehuda is one of the three. He holds there's no breva. Since he holds there's no breva, so if we allow women to put money into a box, and they are giving chatois birds, and one of the women actually dies, then we're going to be stuck. What did your solution was? Take a coin and throw it into the sea. That solution is not going to work. Why is it not going to work? Because no brera, so we don't know which coin it is. Furthermore, we might. How do you know this? Because he holds no brera. Maybe there's different Kikkatoni time, and they actually say a different reason. Let's say he drinks a half of Shabbos, so he drinks for an hour or two. And then what happens is the barrel smashes and all the wine spills out. Did he ever take two samaisis? No. So he came out that he actually drank tevel the mafia. So there's nothing to do with prayer. If we're guaranteed that eventually you're going to be able to take two samaisis, that's fine. But here you're not guaranteed. Meir said, we'll worry about it if it ever breaks. Meir is not choishish. No, so everybody agrees that you've done an Avir. But Maisa, Meir holds we don't need to be choishish for such unusual occurrences. So the Maisa, we've got no right of Yehuda holds there's no Beira. Maybe Yehuda holds there is Beira. But why over here can you not rely on this? Because the barrel might break. Says the Gemara, the reason that we can prove that Yehuda does not have Beira is because of Ayah. Very, very briefly, we went to Beiras Ratzis and Eruvin. A person is only allowed to travel 2,000 amos out of the town. If a person wants to go in a certain direction, let's say there's a Rav coming, and he wants to hear the Shir, that's the example we're going to be discussing. So then what he does Eruvei Tchumin. By the way, Eruvei Tchumin, does that increase the amount he's allowed to walk? Very good. It does not increase the amount you can walk. It just changes the direction. It moves the center point. Oh, very good. It moves the center point. So let's say, for example, my center point is my middle of my Gemara. So I was able to walk 2,000 amos that way, 2,000 amos that way. If I put a slice of bread here, so now I can walk 2,000 amos to the bread and then 2,000 amos from there, but I can't walk 2,000 amos in another direction. And what happens in a case where I don't know where the shir which I want to listen to is going to be? So can you rely on veil? So this is the discussion. And from here, we're going to prove that Yehuda does not hold the veil. And since it doesn't hold the veil, it doesn't allow you to put the money into the chatas. The Tani Ayah, Rabbi Yehuda, he says it in the name of Rabbi Yehuda, which we're discussing. You can't make a condition on two separate concepts. You can say like this: if he'll come to the east, he'll come to the east. I want it to the east. If he comes to the west, comes to the west. We'll explain it in a minute. But in both directions, not. That means at this stage we understand there's two different stories. One where there's two Talmidei Chachamim. One is to the east, one is to the west, and you're not sure which one you want to go to. Who's share? You wake up in the morning, you're unsure. One of you know speaks halacha, one speaks lamdas, and you'll decide Shabbos morning which one you really prefer. That's no good. But if it's one Talmid Chacham, you just don't know if he's coming to the east or coming to the west, then you're allowed to do it. We asked, what difference does it make to this direction, meaning like this. If a person does not know in which direction one Talmid Chacham has arrived, he doesn't know if he's come from the east or come from the west. So he's allowed to put an Eruv to the east and an Eruv to the west and say like this: if on Shabbos I find out he came to the eastern side, I'll go for the east. If I find out on Shabbos he came to the west, I'll go to the west. As long as the Talmid Chacham arrived before Shabbos came in. Because then you do not need to rely on Brera. Then you're just making a condition which you are not aware of what the titzah, what the maskana, what the eventual outcome of the condition is going to be. Masha'enkin, if there are two Talmidei Chachamim, and you are not sure which one you want to listen to, and Shabbos morning you want to decide, when does the mitzvah, when does the chalois Eruv chal, when does Eruv take effect? When Shabbos comes in. And when Shabbos came in, there was absolutely no way to define what you were going to decide the next morning. So therefore, that you can't do. Let's summarize very briefly. This is the riot. Yehuda holds there's no brera. Since Yehuda holds there's no brera, you cannot make an Eruv and say, I make an Eruv in two different directions, and then Shabbos morning decide which one I really wanted the previous day when Shabbos came in, because we do not rely on brera. Which case is okay is with one Talmid Chacham, and you definitely want to go to him, you just don't know where he is, and he's already arrived before Shabbos. So now you're allowed to do such an Eruv because you're not relying on Brera. Brera is when you're trying to decide something now about something which is going to happen later, is going to decide, it's going retroactive designation, meaning that later is going to retroactively designate something happened previously. Here the designation is Chal, takes place as Shabbos comes in. As Shabbos comes in, you make the decision. Only you just don't know. It's a bit like you make an Eruv when you say, if it rains, actually we'll discuss that, it's not so good. You say that it depends on what, I'm making it Eruv for somebody else, whatever he prefers, and he knows what he prefers. So that's okay. So now we're settled. If somebody was to ask you, why does Rabbi Yehuda hold we can't make it stocker box for the ladies who are chayav to bring birds of chatos? Why not? What's the reason? Because maybe we will hear that a woman died, not that we were worried that a woman might die, but we actually find out that a woman dies. and we will not be able to bring it because it will be chatos shemesu ba'aleo, which you have to destroy, and we can't throw one of them into the sea because ain't breva. Says the Gemara, the Hashadam minan Rabbi Yehuda ain't breva, that he holds as no breva. Hoksiva isle, but writing in general he holds, and that's why he holds regarding the other stocker boxes. It's okay. Yoma Kippur nami navit shrei. Let's make two stands. The nichtav alayu. And let's write to them. One stand says on it the cow's blood. Another stand should say on it the he-goat's blood. Let's very, very briefly remind you because we're going to come through again and again. On Yom Kippur, you would check the cow, take the blood, go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, do 1 up, 7 down, then go out, put the blood down in the stand, go out, shech the he-goat, go back in, do 1 up, 7 down towards the Owen, put that down, pick up the cow, do 1 up, 7 down towards the Pavoiches, that's the curtain, and then again do 1 up, 7 down with the he-goat, and then mix the two and do it on the Mizbeach. Says, well, why can't you do 2 stands? Says the Gemara, when a person is tired, he's not able to think straight. And what will happen is, even though normally we rely that a person does read the label, we're scared that on Yom Kippur he will not read the label. If you don't say that's the problem, that he's so tired, he may get confused. Without writing as well, the blood of a cow is much more than the blood of a he-goat. So therefore, never mind the amount, what's the label. He anyway should know which one's the cow, which one is the he-goat. How should he know from the quantity of blood? Says the Gemara, maybe not. That maybe he won't catch all the blood. Since it doesn't catch all the blood, that is why he doesn't know which one's more, which one's less. Says, well, that's not true either. How do we know that he can't catch all the blood? Anybody remember? He has to catch all the blood. We said it's called Dama, and we said it's called Dama, he should take all the blood. Says the Gemara. It doesn't catch all the blood. You have to catch all the blood. If you get catching all the blood of the cow is certainly more than the blood of the he-goat. Says, well, no, that you're right. He caught all the blood of the cow. He caught all the blood of the he-goat. But then some of it spilt. Since some of it spilt, therefore he's still okay. It's the same amount. Again, let's go through. We have proven that according to Rabbi Yehuda that you do rely on labels. The proof is from the 13 stocker boxes. Ask Moshe, let's make 2 stands and write a label. Says that, well, the Kohen Gadol is so exhausted, he may not read the labels. Says, well, I'm going to prove it. What's my proof? Forget the labels. Why not just look at the balls and work it out? Says, well, how can you work it out? Because there's more blood for the cow. Says, well, maybe not. Maybe he didn't catch all the blood of the cow. So, well, that can't be because he has to catch all the blood. Maybe some of it spilt. Says, well, nevertheless. The blood of a cow is a darker red than the blood of a he-goat. I've never seen the blood of a cow or the blood of a he-goat, but it seems that it's a different color. And you should have a little proof that the blood is slightly different color. Anybody remember the proof? What? Oh, there's another proof, a much more simple one, which you should. How many different kinds of gold are there? 7. One of them is called Dam Palvim. There's Zav Palvim. Why it's called Zav Palvim? Because it was the same color as the blood of a cow. Why was it called the same color as the blood of a cow, not just general blood? The answer is there are different levels of color. You can see the difference between the blood of a cow and the blood of a goat? Goats. Never saw blood of goats. What about sheep? Lamb? Is the blood different? Less of it. Oh. It's a big sample, so I'm not sure anybody will appreciate it. You're right, also by Yosef's coat, they dubbed it. Anyway, says the Gemara, so the Gemara Maskala says that according to Rabbi Yehuda, there's only 1 stand. The reason is because we're scared he'll be so exhausted he will not read the label on the stand. And the proof being that we see that he's not careful with the stand because he might get mixed up with the blood of the cow, either because of the blood of the goats, even though they're different colors and usually different amounts, but once he's very tired and confused, he may make mistakes. It says, there was a chaz that went in front of Rabbi. Nochis always means to go down. In those days, the chaz always davened in the lowest part of the shul, because based on the fact, Mamakim Kosicho Hashem, anybody's had the pleasure of dining in monks in London, that is how they do it. Not so comfortable for the seats and when you're sitting there. But and that's what he did say, he was a chazan on Yom Kippur. And they had the same thing which we do nowadays is what? Is they would go through the Seder HaAvodah on Yom Kippur. So this chazan went in front of Rabbi Omar. He went and put the blood on the second stand in the Heichal. Not al Damapa, he took the blood of the cow and then he would put down the blood of the hikut. That's after the seconds. That means he's already done 1 up, 7 down on the cow. Now he's done 1 up, 7 down on the soy, and now he wants to get back the cow one to do 1 up, 7 down onto the porichas. So he takes the cow and he puts down the hikut. In one way, you're saying that that there's 2 stands, and that the chachamim hold, because you said kan sheni, the second stand, which is the chachamim. According to there's only 1 stand, and the second thing you're saying is that Rabbi Yehuda. Why are you saying that Rabbi Yehuda? Because according to the chachamim, you first pick up you first put down and then you pick up. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, you first pick up the goat, the blood of the cow, then you put down. According to Rabbi Yehuda, there's only 1 stand. You first have to take 1 out, then put it down. According to the chachamim, the better way to do it is to put it down and then pick up. First he puts down the damasur, then he takes the blood of the cow. So therefore, you have to do it correctly in the right chronological order. 2 tiny small points. One is that from here we see that when the chazan read the avodah on Yom Kippur, Rava wanted, that Rashi mentions the Shama promise for singing, that by talking about the avodah as if we've done the avodah, Rava wanted that he should say it correctly al pi halacha. So we see over here that when you read that special tefillah on Musaf Yom Kippur, we have to do it halachically correct. And because of that, the different poskim got many questions on the piyut. If the piyut has to work halacha l'maisa, if it doesn't, Rava corrected him. You can't say to the chazan, oh, you're just saying a piyut, it doesn't matter. No, you're explaining the avodah, make sure to get it right. Another point we see is that we paskan like the chachamim and not like Rabbi Yehuda. There's a Magen Avraham that discusses that sometimes in the shul you have 2 sefer Torah, that's and the Baal Kohen needs to make a say Kaddish. What does the Magen Avraham say? How do you do it? You put the sefer Torah down, and then you say Kaddish. Says the Magen Avraham, where do I know it from? From this Gemara. Because in this Gemara it says that before you take something, you put down the previous thing. The Chachamim say first you put down the blood of the cow, and then you take the blood of the goat. He says it's an interesting comparison. We could argue that's an interesting halach. Okay. Now he's finished with inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim. He's done 1 up, 7 down on the cow, 1 up, 7 down on the goat, and now he's going out to Kodesh HaKadoshim. What's he going to do? No, you're right, it davens, but that's after he does 1 up, 7 down on the cow, 1 up, 7 down on the goat, on the porichas. That means he did it once towards the oroi, and now he's going to do it again with different one, with both bloods onto the porichas. He stands opposite the oroi outside. He should do it to the moed. What's supposed to teach us? Whatever he did inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim, he has to do in Heichal. What is that? Just like in the inside, he took the blood of the cow, did 1 up, 7 down. So in the Heichal, which is not the Kodesh HaKadoshim, it's just the Kodesh, does 1 up, 7 down from the cow. Just like he did 1 up, 7 down with the he-goat, so too it does in the Heichal. So actually, so far he's up to 32 sprinkling. 1 up, 7 down. And every time he sprinkles, he has to wipe his finger. Right? So he's done 32. And that's the continuation of the pasuk. Even Christ is with them. It was an apicur set of Chanina. I want to do a few more lines on Zayin Amudai. I want to get down a little bit for it. Later we're going to have a longer and more complicated dafim, so it's chaval too. Hashta now, boy to me matam. You're definitely Tomei Dichsiv, top of the Zayin Amudai, to Mosov the Shulel. Pasuk and Eichel, which is also Muboch El Chedesh Tammuz. Start thinking about Eichel. And the pasuk says to Mosov the Shulel, the tomb of Klal Yisrael is at the bottom of the clothes. So your Tomei, that means that Apikoros tried to make fun of Chanina. And therefore, he said, you're all Tomei. So he said, Amaleis, he said to him, it doesn't matter. So Chazim Aksivu. Asheich itam b'seich to Mosma, Philip Zayin Shem Tmeim, Shchidah Shub B'neim. even when they're Tomei, the Shechina is amongst them. So who cares that we're Tomei? We still have the Ashras Shechina with us. Let's summarize what we've learned so far. In the Kodesh HaKadosh, we did 1 up, 7 down with the cow, 1 up, 7 down with the he-goat. And then you went out to the Kodesh HaKadosh, we did it onto the Purichas. Now, the Torah never told us to do 1 up, 7 down by the cow, 1 up, 7 down by the soy inside the Kodesh HaKadosh. What did the Torah tell us? Anybody remember? 1 up by the soy and 7 down by the cow. 1 up by the soy. Do you remember? Sure. Do you remember this? Do you remember it? 1 up. The Torah says, Yazel, you should sprinkle upwards 1 by the soy and 7 down by the cow. So how do we know 1 up, 7 down by both? Because the Torah says, do to the goat whatever you do to the cow. So we learned the goat from the cow from the goat. So just, it only says 7 by the cow. It only says 1 by the he-goat. We learn them from each other. And now we learn it all. And then the Torah says after that, whatever you did in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, so shall you do out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim onto the Parechas. That is called something which we learned from a drasha, learning another drasha. And this is a fascinating topic. There is a whole sugya. And I will ask straight away a question. Something that you only learned out from a hekesh, something that you only learned out from a drasha of a hekesh. Can you continue learning from a hekesh? No, you're not allowed to. So Gemara says, since we'll take one simple case, the 7 down of the soil. The Torah never says anywhere that you should do 7 down of the soil. It just says, whatever we did for the cow, do for the soil. So that tells us you should do the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So that we learned from a hekesh. And now you're going to do outside the base of the base of Kodesh, also from a hekesh. You can't learn it from a hekesh. Answers to the more. When you're learning something plus something else, that means the Torah already taught us half the halachas of the he-goat. You should do 1 up. So it's not a whole new topic. It is the details of the topic. And therefore you're learning the topic plus something else. That's not learned from a hekesh. And therefore you can learn from a hekesh. Says, well, that's okay. And what are you going to say? The Gemara gives 2 answers. Both of them are brought in Zvachim, and both as big discussions in the Shona. He just places them from each other. We learn it as one. We learn it as one halacha. 2 different answers. We're going to discuss each answer separately. Let's get the question very clear in our minds. The Torah says by the he-goat do 1 up, by the cow do 7 down. And we learn from the he-goat to the cow do the same. So that's a hekesh. And then it says, whatever you do inside, do outside. The question is, somebody should know the hekesh can learn another hekesh. The first answer to the Gemara is that in the halacha which you came up for the hekesh, you can't then learn from A to B and then from B to C. That you can't do. But over here, from A to B was only the number of sprinkling. From B to C is where you do the sprinkling. It's 2 separate topics. And that you can learn from hekesh. That means the first question is, how many up, how many down? So then we learn the cow from the goat, the he-goat from the cow. New question. Whatever you do the Kodesh HaKadoshim, do you have to do neichot? That's mekoimos. That's a new question. If, for example, the Torah would say, do 1 up, 7 down by the he-goat. And then the Torah would say, do the same for the cow. So we learn the cow from the he-goat. And then the Torah would say, let's say about the sheep, that you should do to the sheep whatever you do to the cow, that you can't do. Because you're learning the number of sprinkling from the he-goat to the cow. You can't learn now another hekesh for the cow to the sheep. But over here, we're not discussing anymore how many. Now we're only discussing where. Where is a whole new question. Where you can do a whole new question, therefore it's not something we never discussed till now where. We only discussed the number. That's why it's okay. A second answer is the Gemara says like this. The Torah says you should do in the Ol Moed whatever we did in the Kodesh HaKadosh. Now, some of the things which we learn in the Kodesh HaKadosh, the Torah tells explicitly, for example, the 7 down in the cow and 1 up. So therefore, that much, you can't ask the question, that's a hekesh. It's not a hekesh, because the Pasuk says it clearly. So a certain amount is explicitly said in the Kodesh HaKadosh, and that we learn you should do in the Ol Moed. Now that we learn the amount which is explicit, it's all one drasha, meaning at the same breath, the Torah says, do in the Kodesh HaKadoshim what you should do in the Ol Moed. Do in the Ol Moed what you do in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And part of what it says in the Kodesh HaKadoshim is explicit. If the Torah says that explicitly, and that you can learn next, so therefore now you can't start splitting hairs and say, well, that I can't learn. Because part of what the Torah is teaching us is explicitly said in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and therefore there's no problem. When the Torah tells us something which is not at all discussed in the Torah, that means had the Torah, for example, not said anything explicitly by the cow, and then the Torah was said, do it outside, like you do inside, then you can't say, we can learn it out from each other, go to the cow, cow to outside. And therefore, there's two different answers in the Gemara. And once you learn what's explicit, you can learn whatever is not explicit as well. And now the question, I would like to do another 8 lines, but I'm happy to, let's just do another 8 lines, very, very straightforward Gemara. Unless you think I should stop, what do you think? I don't know, I think there's a cheshbon to carry on. It's not. Okay? Tono kishu mazenu mazal ha-porichas ekneged ha-porichas. When you sprinkle, you don't hit the porichas, rather the blood would land in front of the porichas. I went and I saw the curtains of the porichas in Rome. I saw they had blood on it. So what's the blood of Rabbi Shimon hold? You do get it on. What was the blood of Rabbi Shimon doing in Rome? What was he doing there? So Rashi tells us a story in what's the Meila. At one time, the Roman emperor made a decree that all the Jewish people should be destroyed. So Hashem made a nest. That what happened was that a shade came and he made the daughter of the king, the emperor, crazy. Rabbi got there, and all he had to do was tell the shade, leave the daughter's body, and she became normal. The king was so grateful. He said, come into my storehouses, and you can take all the wealth that you want. What did he do? He went to the storehouse, found the decree, and tore it up. While he was there, he explored the storehouses, and there was a lot of the kelim of the Beis Hamikdash. So he saw the porichas, they had blood on. So blood Rabbi holds that there was blood, that you weren't to do it in front, but to do it onto the porichas. How do you know it was the blood of the Yom Kippur? If Chassidus Kleisel do an aveiro by mistake, they also bring a cow which is sprinkled towards the porichas, and maybe it was that blood. Says the Gemara, the Chazid Avidika Sidon, he did it in order. Those blood, you don't need to do it in order, you do it all scattered. But this blood has to be done in order, 8 in a row. And therefore, since he saw it was 8 in a row, he knew it was the cow of Yom Kippur. In other words, it's exactly the same thing the other way around. But it's now Nami Gavipalem Sibur by the cow of Kaisel doing Averkai Gamnek Shumazel Nugim Porichas, don't make it touch the Porichas. Vim Nogu if they touch, it doesn't matter. And it came along, I saw it. I saw the blood. And so that means when he got to the Porichas, he saw blood in a row, 8. He also saw blood scattered, and therefore he knew that the cow of Yom Kippur plus the cow of Chassidus doing Aveira is all does go in the Porichas, not like these two Mishnayos. But Toys asked the obvious question that which Porichas did he see? In the second Beis Hamikdash, there was no Kohen Gadol that ever brought Palim Siyah with the Zohar. And in the first Beis Hamikdash, there was no Porichas. So his answers, there was a Porichas because there was a Porichas opposite the entrance. There's got a few answers. Okay, tomorrow's daf is a whole new sugya. Tomorrow is a whole. There you go. Okay, we're a tiny bit ahead, but had a short arm. Just managed to finish in plenty of time. Guys, any questions?